how's it going? Well, it's time for another small book haul. I just have a small one. Well, small one here in Japan, not quite so small, shipped to my family's place back in the US. I'll explain later. As some of you may know, if you've been watching me regularly, I have a lot of my books back home in the States. I'm planning to go back this summer and spend time with my father and sister and other family members and good friends scattered around the Pacific Northwest, and many other things, of course. Eat some good Mexican food, hit up a lot of bookstores. But I also am planning to arrange for the rest of my books that are in storage at my family's home and ship them back here to Japan. It's going to be a little expensive endeavor and a little bit of work and time consuming, but I'm looking forward to getting those books back here. And since I'm going back there real soon, in fact, it's less than 3 months now, or right around 3 months, I'll be back in August. I am having some eBay lots and Amazon marketplace shipments of some books supposedly used. They look pretty dang good quality to me. Sent back to my family's home in preparation for me to bring them back with me in this upcoming trip. And some of those books, even though I don't have them here with me now in Japan, they are in my possession, so to speak, because they've arrived safely at my family's home in Washington State. My sister's shown them to me. I've seen the kind of condition they're in. I have photos that I can show you here. So I'm going to share those because I did buy them this month. First, I recently read last month, if any of you watched my April reading wrap-up, I talked about reading this, the third entry in the Dark is Rising sequence of children's fantasy literature, very famous series by Susan Cooper. This is Green Witch. This is the middle one. Because I like this so much, I decided I wanted to get the rest of the series. So I looked online and I found on Amazon Marketplace a set of 5 books in a box set. All 5 of those, pristine condition. I mean, when I looked at them, when I last chatted with my sister, did a video chat, they were untouched. Looked like they had never come out of the box, never had their spine cracked. And I got them for $3. It was $2.98 for all 5 of those. Plus shipping was a little extra, but again, less than $7. I'm not going to pass that up. And as it turned out, it was a really good buy. They are in really excellent shape. So I'm looking forward to reading those. That was a really fun book that I read there. The series seems really interesting, a real interesting depiction of magic, very kind of mysterious, elemental, a lot of kind of Arthurian legend mixed in there. Seems like a really fun series. I'm going to go back and start the series from the beginning. They're not very long books, I don't think. I'm looking forward to reading that series there. So that is the Dark is Rising sequence. So the 5-book sequence starts with Oversea Under Stone. Then it goes to The Dark is Rising, which introduces the character of Will Stanton. Green Witch, The Grey King, and the final book where the final battle is fought between the forces of light and dark, Silver on the Tree. So I have all 5 of those. Those are from Simon & Schuster, and they were published in 1986. But like I said, judging from what my sister, she took them out of the box. The box, she said, was a little dinged up here and there, but the books inside, pristine, just pristine. I really enjoy the Napoleon Bonaparte mysteries from Arthur W. Upfield. Arthur W. Upfield wrote, I think 26, 29, quite a few mysteries in the Golden Age era, but set in Australia. I reviewed The Sands of Windy, I believe last year. I'm trying to remember exactly when. Anyway, it was an excellent book, one of the early ones in this series, and this is one of the very attractive Charles Scribner's and Sons editions. I only have 3 with me. These are really hard to find, at least in my experience in the Pacific Northwest when I go through used bookstores, even a big bookstore like the Tacoma Book Center. Only found a few, if any. I also have The New Shoe, which was excellent. I read that a couple years ago, and Murder Must Wait. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte, he's a half Aborigine, half indigenous person from Australia, and half white. I believe he had an Aboriginal mother and a white father, and so he kind of can straddle both worlds. He's considered one of the best detectives, homicide detectives in the Australian, National Police Force, really, and he's often sent on very difficult cases, often posing as, a tracker, a bushman, working on a farm, various different. He kind of goes into the scenario in kind of various different guises without always announcing that he's a police officer. Sometimes he does, but usually he goes in kind of incognito to kind of suss out the situation. He's got a reputation for never failing in finding his man or woman, depending on who's the murderer. And I really enjoyed what I've read, and I wanted to get some more of those. And I found on eBay a couple of big lots. In fact, there were 3 lots. I didn't pull the trigger on the third one because a lot of it, about half of it or more, was duplicates, but it did have some of the books that I won't have after getting these first 2 lots. So I'm still toying with it. The person selling it was selling it through some kind of a bookstore, thrift store, I don't know, but they were very nice and left me some nice comments on eBay, and they also refunded me $3 in shipping when I ordered both lots. They sent them in 2 separate boxes, but they reduced the shipping a bit because I had ordered both lots. So I ordered a lot of 11 books in one and 12 in the other. I'll show the photos up here of them. The first lot I got, again, I'm just going to read off some of the titles. Some of the ones I showed before, these are duplicated in the lots. They have Sands of Windy, The New Shoe, and Murder Must Wait, and also The Widows of Broome. There's 2 copies of those, 1 in each lot. So those extra copies I'm going to send to a friend. I think I already found someone who might be interested in them, but they look really nice. The ones I have here are in good shape. These Charles Scribner's and Sons books tend to, they're heavier paper stock, and they tend to, kind of maintain their shape pretty well. But these all looked really nice, as you'll see from the photos that I'll put up here. So I'm just going to run through the titles. I don't think this person had them in order. They were all higgly-piggly order-wise as far as which was the first book and which was the 25th book or whatever. The very last book, The Lake Frome Monster, is not in these lots, but I got quite a few. I think I got, in one fell swoop, I got probably, 80% or 75% of the whole series. So that's pretty cool because I really like this series. It started, I believe, in the early 30s and then went all the way up until, I think, 1970 was the last one, maybe published shortly before, or actually, no, now that I recall, the author, Arthur W. Upfield, died, and a couple of his friends or colleagues finished up that last manuscript that he had almost completed, but not quite, and they released that last novel. Anyway, just to go run through the list of these books that are in these lots, we have The Will of the Tribe, Bony and the Kelly Gang, The Battling Prophet, Journey to the Hangman, Sinister Stones. Now, I've read an ebook version of this book, Sinister Stones, several years back, and it was under the title Cake in a Hat Box. Strange title. I think Sinister Stones is a little more evocative, but that was an excellent book. These books are really different, really unique mysteries. They're definitely Golden Age detective mysteries in a lot of ways, but there's a lot more adventure in them, a lot more outdoor investigation and action. They're usually set, not always, sometimes they're traditional in a hotel or in a neighborhood, but in a city. But generally speaking, Bony is way out in the wilderness, in the bush of Australia, solving some of these crimes at remote sheep stations or remote farms or ranches, etc. So The Sinister Stones, that's one I have read before. I'll be glad to have a physical copy of it. Wings Above the Diamantina. Not quite sure what that is. Is that a diamond mine? I'm not sure. The Torn Branch. The Bushman Who Came Back. Murder Down Under. And Man of Two Tribes. And I do believe Man of Two Tribes is the very first Napoleon Bonaparte mystery, because he is indeed a man of two tribes. He's part white and part black. That's the first lot. Then I ordered a second lot, and each of these lots were $25 plus a little bit of shipping. So I think, for considering the condition they're in and the rarity of these books, that's a damn good deal. That's about, $2 a book or less. The next lot has 12 books in it. It has The Bone is Pointed, The Sands of Windy. This is where most of my duplicates are. The first lot also had The Widows of Broome, so I have 2 of these, 1 in each lot. The Bone is Pointed, The Sands of Windy, The Mountains Have a Secret. Don't you love these titles? Really cool titles. Murder Must Wait, which I showed you already that I have. Venom House, The Widows of Broom. Again, this was second listing for that, so I'll have 2 copies of that. One of those will go to the friend who knows who he is that will be getting these duplicates. The New Shoe. Again, I have that one already here. Death of a Lake. No Footprints in the Bush. Winds of Evil. The Mystery of Swordfish Reef. That sounds like a Hardy Boys title, doesn't it? But it sounds really cool. I think Bony goes undercover as a fisherman in this one to solve a coastal murder mystery. And finally, An Author Bites the Dust, which is more closer to a traditional Agatha Christie type of mystery where there's a writers group in this city. I forgot exactly where in Australia. And the most famous one and the most kind of poisonous one is killed. And Bony comes and stays in that area to kind of poke his nose in and find out who did him in, which of the other authors in his authors group, his writers group, decided to take him out, take this author out. Anyway, very cool series, very unique series in the annals of detective fiction and mystery fiction. So I'm really happy to, and almost, kind of one big chunk, get most of that complete series. And if I can, in fact, really complete it by getting this third lot that this seller still has available, I may indeed pull the trigger on that and just get these all done. I kind of like the idea of having a couple that I have to go search for. And also, 20 some of these books to be getting on with is a good start for sure. Okay, that concludes the ones that I ordered online, but I don't have physical copies of here with me in Japan yet. Those are safely stored away, waiting for my illustrious return this summer with my family. But I did order some other things that came to me here in Japan. These are all from Amazon Japan. I know a lot of you don't like to say the name Amazon or use Amazon, but it's a godsend for someone like me who's living here in Japan where I can't always find the books I'm looking for. I certainly can't find them in a used bookstore most likely, and also very few of them show up in new bookstores here in Japan either, even in a big city like Osaka. I know many booktubers here on YouTube talk about the SF Masterworks, the science fiction Masterworks, and I think they're pretty cool. They're fairly cheap. I have a couple of their Golden Age Masterwork editions for C.L. Moore, and I want to pick up a few more of what they might have of those too. But I got a couple that I've been interested in since I've seen people talk about them online. And the first that I got was Earth Abides by George Stewart. And there's a pretty cool cover of this one. Not all the covers are that memorable for the SF Masterworks line, but I do like the yellow spines. I know some people prefer the older black spine editions. Richard Rempel has a lot of the yellow spines, if not all, almost all. And they have some, material about the book and a blurb on the back. This one, I can't remember if Richard read and reviewed this one, but I know Michael K. Vaughan did last month, I believe. And I've been thinking about this one for a while. This is a very well-known and well-regarded post-apocalyptic novel. And, the godfather of the modern apocalypse novel, stately, observant, and magnificently written. That's a blurb on the front there. And this is about a man who, from what I understand, he's in the mountains in a cabin. He gets bit by a rattlesnake, and the venom maybe has some effect on him as he's recovering from this rattlesnake bite. There has been a huge plague, and as he, gets back to his senses and he's recovered from this bite, he walks off the mountain and finds most of humanity has been killed by this kind of plague or mutated virus or something. I don't know all the detail about it, and how he tries to rebuild society with the survivors. So, and here we have another person, someone named Gary Kilworth says, a profound, poetic, post-Holocaust novel of immense stature. So special, I wanted mine to be the only copy. So I'll just read you a little bit about the blurb on the back here about the book. A mysterious plague has destroyed the vast majority of the human race. Isherwood Williams, I guess he's called Ish in the novel, which is a kind of weird choice for a hero's name, but whatever. Isherwood Williams returns from a wilderness field trip to discover that civilization has vanished during his absence. Eventually in San Francisco, so he makes his way to San Francisco, I guess, he encounters a female survivor who becomes his wife. Around them and their children, a small community develops, but rebuilding civilization is beyond their resources, and gradually they return to a simpler way of life. And from what I understand, this is kind of a meditate, as well as having, I'm sure, some adventure elements and survival elements, which will make it compelling to read. There's also a heavy philosophical bent to this about, what does it take to be civilized, and do what older generation might think is important for rebuilding civilization may not be important to the younger generations. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. Sounds pretty cool. And again, it's pristine, brand new edition. Wasn't too expensive. And then another one, I haven't read much Arthur C. Clarke, and this one sounds the most intriguing to me. And this is Rendezvous with Rama, one of the another of Arthur C. Clarke's big dumb object kind of science fiction novels. If you are not familiar with the big dumb object kind of motif, some kind of large alien monument or ship or something that's out there in space, and then the human race discovers it, and what they make of it, they try to solve the mystery of it, etc. So technically not really dumb, but it's just dumb in that it doesn't doesn't give information readily to the humans who are researching it. So again, we have a pretty okay cover here, not bad. I don't know if this is a Photoshop cover or what. I'm hoping it's illustrated. I don't know if there's any sort of credit on the cover on either of these. Nope, doesn't seem to be. But anyway, of course, I should mention that these SF Masterworks are published by Gollancz. Some people say Gollancz. I think it's probably the C is, I'm guessing, silent, Gollancz, but I could be wrong there for sure. Rendezvous with Rama, one of the truly prophetic figures of the space age, according to the New Yorker. I guess they're talking about Mr. Arthur C. Clarke, who did indeed indulge in plenty of prognostication and, foretold a lot of things that have since come true as far as technological advances go. There are perpetual surprises, constant evocation of the sense of wonder, and occasions of the most breathless suspense, according to the New York Times. Quite masterly, the Times, London, etc. So, the enigmatic object christened Rama was detected while still outside the orbit of Jupiter. A first radar contact at such a distance was unprecedented, indicating that Rama was of exceptional size. As it raced through the solar system, it became apparent that Rama was a cylinder so geometrically perfect that it might have been turned on a gigantic lathe. Mankind was about to receive its first visitor from the stars. And this was not quite as thick as Earth Abides, but still, over 200 pages. And this one looks pretty cool. I'm pretty interested in this and trying to get to more classic science fiction novels, get more of those read in the future, in the coming months. So I plan to get to that one hopefully later this year. Okay, David at Garage Geek, good old Garage Geek David there, really fun channel and always talking about some cool stuff. And he runs through comics a lot and talks about them. And he reminded me, and thank you, David, for this. He reminded me that DC Finest Western edition, a trade paperback or, big collection. I think it has at least, I think it's at least 600 pages almost or so. No, it's about 600 pages worth of comics. They're, putting them together. Very cool Western ones. Look at that cool shoot 'em up kind of cover there. This is The Hangman Never Loses. And this has artwork and writing, I guess, by someone called Robert Kaniger, John Albano, Gil Kane, Joe Kubert, and many more. And it has, these are some of the editions it takes from: Tomahawk, Top Guns of the West, All-Star Western, Son of Tomahawk, Weird Western, which is the one where Jonah Hex starts coming in. And these collect issues from 1970 to 1973. And there's a lot of them, and they have some really cool artwork and cool looking stories. There's a character here called Tomahawk, of course, but there's also El Diablo, who is this kind of Zorro-like figure, which these stories look really cool. He appears in the All-Star Western comic. I'll try to find a good picture of him to show you some of the art that you can see in this one. Really bold colors. And here he is. I think this is El Diablo. The devil has two faces. El Diablo. No, I love Zorro and any kind of Zorro-like character. He seems to be a Zorro out for vengeance and saving people when they need it. Very cool. And, you know, rescuing a boy who's treed by a bear. More El Diablo. Again, you see just tons and tons of stories in here. And later in the book, we start getting, as we get into the mid-70s, we start seeing some Jonah Hex, who's got the kind of scar in his face. So his lip is scarred, so he kind of... And, you know, in the movie version with Josh Brolin, they put some kind of supernatural elements in there. I'm not sure if he has any supernatural elements at all. I'm not sure in these stories, but they look pretty cool. Some pretty cool art. And Jonah Hex is... Jonah Hex weird Western kind of splash page there with the rattlesnake. He's staked out to die in the sun with some rattlers and how he gets out of that. And again, in weird Westerns, we still have some El Diablo. Anyway, just pages and pages and pages of really cool looking Western stories. I'm really looking forward to digging into these. I'll certainly read some of these for Jude on the Range. The only thing I don't like, and this is a new edition, but you know, the people who are, you know, Amazon sending it, look at this. It's got this little ding on the top here because it was wrapped just in a plastic sack. That was it. No padding or anything. What is wrong with these people? Usually I get something on Amazon Marketplace and it's better wrapped than that. But this one, I don't know. Wasn't too happy about that. But overall, it's in nice shape and I'm fine. I'm not going to return it. Last thing. I'm going to finish up with the last thing that I bought and I just received yesterday. I listened and really enjoyed the most recent... I enjoy all of their episodes, but I really enjoyed the recent second part of talking about the Solomon Kane adventures that the Robert E. Howard Foundation did. The Robert E. Howard Foundation run by John. He had some of the some Robert E. Howard scholars, as well as Tim from Secret Fire Books and Jim from Mystery and Mayhem. And they were on talking about the next batch of 4 stories featuring Solomon Kane. And, you know, I have a couple of cool Bantam Solomon Kane editions with the fold-out covers and all that, but they were edited by Ramsey Campbell, and not all of them are the original form. I know Ramsey Campbell finished Hawk of Basti, which is a not complete story from what I recall. And they didn't include Blue Flame of Vengeance, which was one of the stories they covered on this most recent episode of the Robert E. Howard Foundation channel. And sounds like such an amazing story, a novelette, that I really wanted to just finally pull the trigger on getting the Del Rey edition of the Savage Tales of Solomon Kane. And I found a used edition for probably about $12 or something. And again, it wasn't well wrapped, but looks basically new, almost, or maybe barely read. You know, maybe a little, you know, in transit, got a little ding, but this was in Japan and I got it within a couple days of ordering it. So I was like, woohoo, I'll take that. From the this is the Del Rey edition. It's got the nice little Robert E. Howard logo there, wearing his fedora. And of course, you know, most people who are aware of, you know, fantasy, dark fantasy, weird tales, etc., they're aware of Solomon Kane, the Puritan adventurer who's, you know, just never gives up if he's on the trail of vengeance. He's going after those bad guys to either free some poor enslaved woman or, you know, revenge one that's been killed by someone. He'll travel all the way across the world twice and 3 times if he has to get over many years to get his revenge. Really fun character and really interesting stories, several of which do feature ghosts, you know, kind of vampire characters or zombies, winged creatures, etc., as well as just straight up adventure tales. And this is a pretty cool edition. I know many people have this one. This one is illustrated inside by Gary Gianni. Last month I reviewed Gentlemen of the Road, written by Michael Chabon, and that book was illustrated by Gary Gianni. Does really nice work. As you can see here, he has like a portrait of Solomon Kane, who always looks dour, but is just a really fun character despite that. And there's some cool art there. And this has all of the stories that were ever written by Robert E. Howard featuring Solomon Kane. Now, I'm not quite sure why they have this kind of really wide margins here. I don't know. Tell me if this is normal, guys. If maybe I have a weird desktop published version. I'm not quite sure. It seems like it's the original Del Rey. This one is complete as far as Solomon Kane tales go, and it's got lots of cool art. Some of it in the more realistic variety, some of it more just some cool little, sketches and beautiful drawings all the way through, almost something on almost every page, which is really cool, as well as some, slightly bigger illustrations, like these weird winged creatures that he's fighting in Wings in the Night. I'm sure that's Wings of the Night. Yeah. Anyway, very happy to get this. It's a good condition. It was a decent price. It was here in Japan, so I didn't have to ship it from overseas. And I really am excited to read, especially this Blue Flame of Vengeance story, kind of a pirate swashbuckling adventure and revenge tale that Jim, Tim, John, Bobby, and Bob, I think, Bobby D and Bob, those 5 gentlemen did an excellent rundown of these stories and poems, etc. And that one was particularly interesting to me, and I'm looking forward to reading that pretty soon, as well as some of the others. So fully illustrated throughout, and they're not lying. There is illustrations all over the place in this. So very cool. Glad to have that. That is all that I have currently ordered and either received here in Japan or received in possession of my family back in the States. Hope you enjoyed looking at some of those books. If you have any comments about any of them or any questions about any of them, please let me know. So that does it for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care and happy reading.